Hello. Thank you very much all for joining us on this session. This will be focused on urban air mobility and advanced air mobility, which of course are very hot topics, both internationally and nationally, as I'm sure some of the speakers will discuss. And we hope that this session will help, will contribute to the discussion that we are having nowadays in terms of how to transform this technology and new ways of mobility into a reality from our day-to-day lives. So we don't have very much time, so I'd like to call the panel, Pedro and Veruska, please come here and join us. We have also online. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Do we have the remaining panel online? Excellent. Clem, welcome. Do we have Mike also?
I am here.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much all for joining us. Unfortunately, my name is Rui Santos. I'm the general manager from the AED cluster. Unfortunately, Rui Marcelino, which was going to moderate the session, had a last-minute engagement and he could not make it. But I'm sure with such an interesting panel, I will be able to handle the job. So, unfortunately, also Duarte Stein, President and CEO at TEKEVER Mobility, also due to a last-minute engagement, cannot participate. But we have here with us Mike Hirschberg, which is the Executive Director at the Vertical Flight Society, which is with us digitally. Thank you, Mike, for joining again here in Portugal. We have Clem Newton-Brown, which is the founder and CEO of Skyportz. Thank you, Clem, for joining us. We have Veruska Rodrigues, which is a Research and Development Engineer on Advanced Air Mobility at CEiiA. And we have Pedro Petiz, which have many functions, but I think it's one of them is Head of Innovation at TEKEVER, and they are all here. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation to discuss. We have 40 minutes, so I think we will have a first round of small presentations. Let's try to keep with the time so that you can give your overall insights and perspectives and what you think and how are you engaging with this topic. And then if you have some time, we can go through a round of questions in order to promote also some discussions on the topic. So first of all, maybe we would start with Mike, that could give us, I think it's the right guy following all these initiatives, so I think he can give us a good overview of what's happening and lay down a little bit the context for this discussion. And then we could have Clem, which will surely talk about his product and value proposition, and surely about the challenges that still lie ahead to make this a reality from our day-to-day life. And then we would go to Veruska, and Pedro, that will probably talk about all the interesting stuff that we're doing here in Portugal about this topic. So, with no further ado, maybe Mike, I pass to you. I don't know if you have some slides to present, or you're just going to give. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, and you can hear me okay?
Yes. Good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to give this talk. It's really an honor to be here virtually with you today. I'm the director of the Vertical Flight Society. So we're an international professional society for anybody working on vertical flight or advanced air mobility in general. So just a bit about us. So we have 6,500 individual members around the world. We were founded in 1943 as the American Helicopter Society, just as the first American helicopters were being put into service. But we've expanded to everything. So everything from drones to helicopters and now electric VTOL. And when helicopters first started, 70, almost 80 years ago now, people were suspicious. They didn't have a lot of range. They didn't have a lot of payload. So we helped the whole community work on the technology and work on the operations to help field helicopters. And now we're trying to do the same thing with electric vertical flight. So again, anybody can join Vertical Flight Society. We're an educational society. It's all about community and understanding, working towards safety and things like noise and acceptability. And again, we anybody from industry, academia, or government, we work with everybody that has this vision for a advanced air mobility future. We have a number of different websites and social media outreach. So eVTOL.news is our electric VTOL site. We try to catalog every single aircraft concept, every design. We have over 530 designs today. We also have things like a newsletter, we do videos, we have lots of conferences and technical presentations and webinars, short courses. So if you need to learn about eVTOL and the technical challenges or the operational challenges, like Clem, we recognize that infrastructure is a key aspect of eVTOL, and so we have had a number of webinars and discussions on infrastructure. And there's different terms that are used. Advanced air mobility is now kind of a broad term to cover these different things, but we really see this as the electric power, and the electrical power distribution is really the key attribute. So helicopters have an engine driving a transmission and a gearbox, shafts, all kinds of things running around the aircraft, and so you're really limited to two rotors, generally a main rotor and a tail rotor. It locks you into certain designs, and there's certain requirements necessary in order for a helicopter to have a rotor system that basically flies sideways, and it ends up with a fairly complex rotor system with cyclic pitch control of the blades, collective. You have a swash plate, as I mentioned, hydraulics, transmission, gearboxes. So the idea is to take this very single complex system and replace it with lots of less complex systems. And they're not very efficient, but if you can get off the ground and then transition to a wing for a more efficient forward flight, then you can gain back some of that efficiency. So the wing really gives better speed and longer range. But one of the key attributes for electric power is you can reduce the noise. There's no tailpipe emissions, so depending on how you generate your electricity, you're much more environmentally friendly. And we think they're going to be safer and cheaper and easier to operate within cities. If you look at the picture on the left, that was a demonstrator that Sikorsky built. They didn't actually ever fly it, but you see on the side, there's two big batteries. On the floor is all the things that they took out to convert it from a piston engine to a electric motor. And you've got the engine, you got fuel systems, you've got the exhaust systems. So that's just with keeping a helicopter. So if you can take out all the complexity, then that should be a cheaper and simpler design. If you look at the left side here, this is a typical helicopter rotor system compared on the left side, a very, very simple electric propeller. And tilt rotor, you see the Leonardo AW609 tilt rotor on the left side, and then the Joby tilt propeller on the right side. So it's a less complex system. But what is it? Why are we here today? In actuality, eVTOL aircraft have been under development for more than a decade, taking advantage of things like electric motors, advances in batteries, advances in computer modeling and simulation. So 10 years ago, it was only really helicopter companies or aircraft companies that could design, they could use these programs to design helicopters or design aircraft. Now you can buy commercial packages. So Dassault and others have developed really capable electric computer design capabilities. Also advances in composites and low-cost manufacturing. EASA and FAA have moved to performance regulations, so they're much more open to these new designs. Lots of technology innovations. And we've seen over the last several years, almost $10 billion has gone into investment, with about half of that coming in just this year. And you look at, on the right-hand side, here's SpaceX taking civilians into space for several days. So there's just huge innovations and capabilities and funding that enables these new designs. So several years ago, we came up with these 5 key challenges for eVTOL. So what is it going to take? So there's a technology, of course. Many people seem to think that designing an eVTOL aircraft is easy. It's like scaling up a drone, but it's not. It's more like scaling down an airliner, because you need to have that level of safety if you're going to use it for regular commercial transport. As I mentioned, infrastructure, and Clem is going to talk about that. And that's both physical infrastructure and air traffic control. There's workforce. So we're going to build an entirely new industry. Where do we get all these engineers and trained mechanics on electrical systems? We need pilots, lots of pilots, maybe 50,000 pilots. And then eventually we're going to go to more autonomous systems. So where do we get those? Standards and regulations are in development, public acceptance, noise and safety. And I won't belabor this, but these are some of the things on the right-hand side that we're doing to enable these, to help with these challenges and get support this transition to this new and bright future that we all see. We see that the first eVTOL aircraft will be approved for certification in 2023 and go into service in the 2024 timeframe. There's 1,000 reasons why eVTOL won't work, but we're working with everybody who will help us to try and find solutions to all of these and find the path that does work. eVTOL is the intersection of aerospace, automotive, electric, artificial intelligence, drones, and so we need everybody's ideas on how to solve these challenges. So it takes everybody's work. It takes you. We hope that you join the Vertical Flight Society or join your own professional society or work to realize this bright and promising future. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. I think that is a key message. I mean, this has to become from a shared effort and collaboration with all the stakeholders. Thank you very much. I will come back to you if you have some time for questions, but now I would go straight to Clem, which will talk about a little bit Skyportz.
Sure, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello. Yeah, hello from Melbourne, Australia. And thanks for that, Mike. And I can certainly give testament to the value that my membership with your Vertical Flight Society gives for over in Australia. It's a great resource. Now, we've been told to only speak for 5 minutes, so I'll run through this very quickly. I'm coming from the perspective of my little piece of the puzzle, which is the infrastructure. And Mike's right. I think this is a massive puzzle to solve. And I'm not an aviator. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not an engineer. My background is in politics and planning and law. And I've used to be the Deputy Mayor of Melbourne, and I was a member of the State Parliament as well. So I've got a good handle on the political side of things that we need to get the changes through to enable this new era in aviation. And I've also got the property background and the experience there, which I think puts me in good stead to solve my little piece of the puzzle, which is the landing infrastructure. Melbourne is a great spot. We're home to some amazing international events, and we've also got we're a great spot for aviation because we're the only spot in Australia, only city in Australia we can land a helicopter in the centre of the city. And this is probably one reason why Uber Air chose Melbourne. We've got an urban renewal precinct right for development on the city fringe. We've got a no curfew international airport and secondary airports nearby, stable weather, excellent power grid, and microflight helicopters here I've been working with for about 5 years or so, and I'm working with them to help transition them into electric aviation, and they're certainly keen to be using some of their tourist uses for using electric aircraft rather than traditional helicopters. From the political perspective, we've got very strong support here in Australia. We've got our state government here in Victoria successfully pitched Melbourne to Uber Air, and which was supported by Skyportz. We've got our government is reviewing all our transport assets to work out how advanced air mobility can fit into our network, and we're expecting a comprehensive policy soon. Other states in Australia, New South Wales and Queensland, they're investing in research and development. Some of them have quite advanced drone delivery services. The Google Wing came to Australia because they like the environment here, and they've been delivering things in Australia long before they were delivering things in the States, I understand. So it's been about 5 years, I think, in Canberra, and now it's been expanded. We've also got a very strong policy environment in the federal government. I sit on the National Emerging Aviation Technologies Committee, and we're working towards creating the ecosystem where we can solve some of these problems that Mike has advanced. And this fund is going to be releasing $30 million at the end of the year to enable companies such as mine to do concepts of operations, to partner with others, and try to come up with some solutions to advance things. So overall, we've got a very strong political support for AAM, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the OEMs starting to look at Australia now. Uber Elevate, what happened there? They chose Melbourne. There was a blast of publicity, and they were talking about 1,000 aircraft an hour going into Skyportz around the city, and that was in 2019, and it sort of slipped off the radar, and then we heard that they'd been subsumed into Joby. So Uber are no longer part of the ecosystem, although I'm sure the work they've done will assist Joby, and I will give credit to them for bringing us all together and exciting the public as to what the possibilities could be. But I think ultimately they run an app, and there's still all the people who the very clever people who are building these aircraft and working out how to fly them safely and operate them that are still going full steam ahead. So it's certainly no blip in the or road or speed hump in the route. It's everybody's moving on. In Melbourne, this was a bit of a PR disaster. We had the blast of publicity, and we had images like this, which the media ran, and it really didn't help the cause, because one of the really big issues is community acceptance. And if we don't have community acceptance, we won't get political acceptance. So if we scare the community, they'll put the pressure on the politicians, and it won't happen. So while people who are excited by this get excited by images like this, but I think we have to be a bit more real about it, because people don't like helicopters. The idea of having 1,000 Uber aircraft flying around the city was basically scared people. There needed to be an engagement beyond just press releases, and so that's the one criticism I would make. But I do give Uber credit for generating that excitement, and that they're certainly a publicity machine. But now we really need to get real, I think. And this picture wouldn't make it to the front page of any newspaper, but here's the perfect skyport. It's in the middle of nowhere. You're not going to hurt anybody if things go wrong. And you've got airspace which is not congested, and I think what we need to do is crawl, walk, run. And these experimental aircraft that are flying, I mean, this is where they're flying from, these type of airfields, and I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors by jumping to the end visionary jets and skyports in the city. We should be showing people the aircraft flying in these safe locations and bringing people along, and I think that's how we're going to get that political support from the community supporting it, so they can see and they can hear the aircraft fly. You start off in places like this, and then you move into closer to the city. But with Skyportz in my business, I am looking more at city fringe land, industrial land, business parks, that sort of thing. And I've come to the conclusion that even though I'm not an aviator, I've come to the conclusion that landing an experimental, a new aircraft in a busy, congested city with lots of micro weather issues is going to be quite a difficult task, and probably something that would happen after you've proven it in safer locations. So the way I see things working for Skyportz and for the industry is to start off with city fringe land, create micro airports in industrial areas and business parks, where aircraft can land with plenty of space around them. They're not dealing with tall buildings around them or micro weather conditions. They've got space for that to happen, and you're landing at ground level as well. And also from a business perspective, you've got places for people to park, so they can park and ride in the air taxi, or if it's for freight purposes, you can have businesses co-locate with Skyportz because they want to use the services. So it makes a lot of sense to me to be looking at these sort of sites, and this is what we're focusing on. We've got over 400 property partners now who are keen to progress this, and this is what we've been amassing over the last 3 years in Australia. And the role we play now is to advance the planning, regulatory and zoning changes that we need. So we're looking at state governments to actually help us by providing new guidance. And then when that comes in, we'll have the property partners. I might skip over this slide because we're running out of time, but the Electra Aero, we've ordered 100 Electra Aero aircraft. They're a STOL aircraft, and they're a bit different to the eVTOLs, but they're ideally suited for Australia. And I'll talk about the benefits of this if I get time during questions. So just to conclude, yesterday we announced our first Skyport, which is in a high-tech manufacturing industrial park. This is one of the investors. We're just finishing a seed fundraising round tonight, actually, and this is one of our investors who loved it and said, "Well, can we make the first Skyports within this development?" And so this is in Brisbane, where we've got the Summer Olympics in 2032, and so we're talking with the government, and hopefully we'll be getting that policy support to enable us to build similar locations near Olympic venues, so that over the course of the next 9 years, we would hope that by then we'll have a pretty impressive operating at scale air taxi network to ferry people between Olympic venues, so that if you want to watch the 100 metres sprint, you're not gonna miss out on another event in an athletics field the other side of town. So we think there's great potential there, and obviously there's a lot of investment going on into Brisbane for the Olympics. So I hope I didn't go too much over 5 minutes, but that's my presentation. I look forward to the discussion.
Well, excellent, Clem. Thank you very much. I think you of course touched a very important topic, which is public acceptance, and we will get back to that in the discussion. So maybe I will go to Veruska, which will talk a little bit about what's happening at CEiiA and all the initiatives that are involved. Please, I think you have also some slides to share. You have. Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I will start my participation with a short presentation about CEiiA and advanced air mobility as a concept. CEiiA is a Portuguese engineering center, a non-profit organization, and we have more than 300 engineers, most of them with aeronautical background. We are located in the north of Portugal, in Matosinhos, and over the past few years, we have been working on several projects in high-tech areas like ocean and space, aviation, also smart and sustainable cities, and ground mobility. Now, we are combining this knowledge to address the challenges of advanced air mobility. But what is advanced air mobility? Advanced air mobility, also called advanced aerial mobility, refers to the adoption of electrical and hybrid aircraft to urban, suburban, and rural operations. Therefore, urban air mobility is considered a subset of advanced air mobility. In March 2020, NASA announced that instead of using urban air mobility in their developments, They would use the advanced air mobility because the term is more inclusive. Then some of the stakeholders around the world started to do the same. Last year was a landmark year for advanced air mobility. Models of concept of operations were disseminated. Several aircraft manufacturers present their products and enter the stock market through specs. Certifying entities such as FAA and the EASA made public consultations about this subject. The evolution was enormous. In my opinion, we can say that this year was the birth of AAM for the general public. Of course, we still have some way to go about certification, test, and validation before regular operations. But according to a very recent study from Deloitte, the initial developments are expected to happen in 4 years, and AAM full implementation before 2042. In between, the maturity of navigation systems and air traffic management systems will have to be fully developed and validated. Now about CEiiA. The FlyPT project was CEiiA's kickoff in advanced air mobility. The main focus of this project is the development, prototyping, and test of an innovative and modular vehicle that integrates horizontal and vertical mobility. CEiiA's main responsibilities are the skate development and the intermodal concept of operations. We are at the moment in the conceptual definition, and in 2 years' time, we intend to validate this concept with a reduced scale prototype. We also participate in Assured UAM, a European-founded project, where the main goal is to develop a set of solutions which will assure UAM integration with ATM and city organization without compromising UAM acceptability, safe, or sustainability. Finally, focusing on what CEiiA intends to do in the near future, CEiiA's roadmap for AAM is pointing towards the emergence and medical transport use case. This should happen in collaboration with the 4Life Lab partners, and the scope will involve infrastructures, vehicles, and operation. EASA has published a UAM study recently showing that the emergence and medical use cases have received the greatest public interest. And this obviously reinforce or will to leap forward with AAM and also with medical use case.
Okay, excellent. Veruska, thank you very much for the short but very interesting presentation of CEiiA's activities. So I maybe go to Pedro, which will talk a little bit about TEKEVER, and then I think we will have some time for questions, which is great. Pedro.
Sure, thank you for your time. I'm just going to show briefly about TEKEVER for those who don't know who we are. But basically because TEKEVER is a drone OEM. So we are a manufacturer, although we also have the service level of drone operations in Europe. And the reason why I'm not going to very deep about the UAM as it is, because we need to understand where we come from, and to understand it, that's what I'm going to show. So, very briefly, when you speak about UAVs, RPAS, all these drone technology, we talk about real-time, we talk about intelligence, we talk about integration of data, we talk about ecosystem and the multi-technological capability. It's not just flying, it's not just aeronautics, it's not just electronics, it's a much higher complex issue because we don't have no one aboard. So it's most close that we have to urban mobility would be a drone. For you to have an idea about TEKEVER, we are located in Portugal, but we have also an office in UK, and in Portugal we have manufacturing engineering capability. Here in Ponte we have a production factory just outside this compound on the corner. We do have a training capability where you do have the training courses for our customers. And this is a key point because we are not just a technological developer. When you think in a product, we have to think all the chain. It comes from technology, which is a driver, but then you need to set up all the chain of added value in order to have a product in the market. So we needed to build all this capability, including training for our customers. Of course, when you think about drones training and you think about in-air mobility, what is the link? Well, it's a small step, but it's a big step at the same time. The difference between the drone and the in-air mobility is about taking people on board. And that will lead us to a major topic about safety. And one thing that we always make this discussion internally is what is the role of the decision process, autonomy, how autonomous this system should be. How can they provide a solution or a problem to this topic? So this is something that is right at the core of what we do in our systems. So in order for you to understand this, you need to understand what we do. So TEKEVER, we are not only OEM, but we are also a service provider. So, which gives us a very fair insight about things, how operate systems, how to integrate these systems on airspace, how difficult it is, how the trust required to develop with authorities, with societies required in order to enable the acceptance of this type of systems. So this gives us a very good insight, not so much as OEM, we have been for 10 years now, but also how to build these systems into society. And that's why you need to master all the stack of technology. It's very difficult to make something new come into the market like this. And that it's something that we can explore also for UAM, for urban air mobility, as this cycle. We know how it comes from. So everybody is quite excited at the beginning. We develop technology, everything ramps up. Then we start getting the feeling, well, it might not work. Then a lot of things come down, and then it's where we mature the technology. To do this mature, and then the market uptake, we need to master all the technology, and that's what we do at TEKEVER. That allows us to develop some of our products and some of our services, and currently TEKEVER is one of the leading companies in Europe performing surveillance operations for several countries. In Europe, in the last 5 years, we have, well, this data is not updated, but we have more than 2,000 hours of surveillance operations made with drones in real operational scenario. And that is one of the TEKEVER most valuable knowledge and assets. It's how to bring this technology to real operations in a sustainable way. Why I say this? Because it does not work to do it once. You need to do it all the day on the very best. The same thing will be required to AM. Urban air mobility will be required to operate 100% every day, at every time, at every location. So we need operational knowledge about it. Finally, and the last topic is about data-driven and what we can explore from artificial intelligence and machine learning, whatever technology it is, to extract data and make a drone or a UAM the most simple way to operate. So you need to exploit data in order to access the mission. And that brings another issue about UAM. It's how we integrate all this technology in the safe way. I'm rushing up because you don't have much time. I'm just going to a small video. I think you already seen this.
So I have a hot mic, but they only broadcast.
So this is just a teaser about what we do, and just to close the loop with what we are talking today, is that we may have multiple different configurations. The landscape, you will see a lot of different flavors about designing and market. Definitely what you need to understand is how all of these will have to cooperate in the same space, in the same area, in a safe way. And for us, TEKEVER as an OEM, it's how we can build up on what you already know to make it short, the pathway to this market that is clearly uptaking and setting up this space. Rui, that's all for the moment.
Excellent, Pedro. Thank you very much again for an excellent presentation. We have 4 minutes, so I think we'll try for one question for each speaker. I will start maybe with Mike. Mike, you were talking about new technology, the need for collaboration, new stakeholders. I mean, clearly, I think we have, on one side, we have an aeronautic industry that is very conservative in terms of its value chain. As we know, it's difficult to get in. I mean, a lot of certification, a lot of building up trust. On the other hand, we have this urban air mobility where we see already a lot of new players. Some surely branch out from OEMs, but we have also a lot of startups that got into the market. My question is, in terms of SMEs, does this represent a new opportunity to get into play? I mean, there will be new technology, either 3D manufacturing, printing, electric power, as you mentioned. We have new stakeholders that don't have the decades culture of aeronautics, so maybe they are more flexible, maybe more open. Do you think this new trend creates realistic new opportunities for new players that maybe can have a different take on this? What is your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we need people with exciting new disruptive ideas. You know, for AAM to be successful, you can't just build you know, helicopters and you know, airliners, and you can't just build quadcopters and scale them up. So we need people that look at the whole spectrum of the problem and then use the expertise. So, you know, the Vertical Flight Society has vertical flight experts, but you know, you need, as I mentioned, you need people that know about vertical flight, you know, helicopters or jet vertical flight. You need electronics engineers, you need you know, autonomy and flight controls. So you need people with disruptive ideas to come up with these new configurations, but you need people that are experts in certification and safety and all the important things that you know, the airliners and other passenger carrying aircraft use today. You know, safety is paramount, and just because you're putting lots of propellers on something doesn't mean that it's safer. So it's really a system safety view in ensuring that these configurations that nobody's ever flown in before will be safe and affordable and meet all the expectations for this advanced air mobility future.
Excellent, Mike. Thank you very much. Clem, you discussed mainly, I mean, for public acceptance. Of course, that is one of the main issues. My question is, I mean, are we sure will we get the public acceptance that we need to make this a reality? I mean, it's just a question of studying and understanding the right approach, or maybe we can be faced with a reality where it will be very difficult for this to take off because of the public acceptance. What is your perspective?
Look, I don't know the answer to that, and I think it very much depends on the whole ecosystem that we bring people along and start slowly. And this is why, you know, with Skyportz, I see the future as being, you know, starting in those innocuous locations at ground level in areas where industry is already, And who's going to complain about that? If you've got trucks and manufacturing and other things going on there, and you've got a very quiet electric helicopter coming and going, what difference is that going to make to people's lives? And hopefully they see the utility in it. They say, well, this is a benefit because I can actually drive here, leave my car here, and go somewhere without having to go to an airport. Or similarly with freight, it could be a freight hub where they can order a book, and it can be at their local Skyportz that they can drive to in the space of hours. So I think what we need to do is start first with getting the aircraft in and operational, and then people get to see it, and then the community will be brought along. And this is why it's so important to get the aircraft here. And this is what I'm working on so hard in Australia, is to actually attract the OEMs to Australia and sell why it is that it's a good idea for them to come here. And having a network of sites that they can build out, or our partners can build out in the next few years, and they can operate from, is a huge advantage. And that's what's attracted Electra Aero to be our launch partner. But we're certainly open to other OEMs, and we're envisaged that there'll be many different aircraft using our Skyportz in the future.
Okay, excellent, Clem. Great answer. We are over time, so I will ask for 30-second replies. I apologize. Veruska, I mean, you have discussed a lot about the ecosystem. I mean, everything that is needed in terms of infrastructure, technology. In your perspective, what are the next steps that have to be taken to make this a reality?
In my opinion, thinking about next steps, we can highlight 4 major milestones. Initially, we should expect to see small cargo drones flying near cities and over the cities to validate the technology and answer some question about U-space integration with other aircraft types, and also about public acceptance and safety. Then we have the initial flights with passengers, but limited to point-to-point connection, predefined routes, following the fully autonomous systems and demand flights. And finally, the full development of AAM network and the integration with other means of transport.
Excellent. Thank you, Veruska. Pedro, very quickly also, I mean, you mentioned autonomy. You are also involved in this building up for urban air mobility, for passenger transportation solution also.
Yeah.
I mean, in your perspective, how do you see autonomy? Is it something that is going to help, or is it going to limit the approach that we can have in terms of solutions and value propositions for the market?
Okay, so from an OEM, I'm assuming autonomy means about decision making of the process.
Exactly.
Not about range. Yeah, so it's a key issue. As for the technology, because that will have to be enforced to make sure everything runs smoothly. But what I think is that autonomy is an enabler of the market to grow and market size. So if you don't have autonomy, if you need to have someone expert inside these UAM systems that needs to be a pilot, then the market size will come down. So you really need autonomy on there. Now, how autonomous it has to be, what's the level of autonomy, is something to be seen. Some will be on the drone or in the platform, some will be in the infrastructure, some will be the operational side, but for sure. Otherwise, imagine what it is to have flight control ATCs for the number of cars that we have now, but now fly in the air. So you need autonomy. It's a market driven. Without that, I think be shortly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I think we could discuss this for a couple of more hours, but we're already 3 minutes, but I think it's still a good job. So I would like to thank all the panel for participating and giving your insights. And I'm sure, I mean, as we see, this will be discussed more and more, so for sure we'll be able to collaborate in the future. So thank you very much, people digitally, and that made the effort to come here. So thank you very much all.
Thank you.
And this,
Thank you.
we'll stop now. Thank you.
Thank you.